Chapter 36, in which Princess Kitty does work in the lighthouse. Princess Kitty doesn't mind the rain, unlike Todd and Audrey. She was protected with a thin layer that prevents her from getting wet. So while some people are getting soaked, she remained dry. The night was pitch black. It thundered, it rained, and bright flashes of lightning now and again shot across the sky, turning it into a sea of fire. An angry wind blew, while the trees shook and moaned in a weird way. She doesn't mind the thunder and lightning either. In a dozen leaps and bounds, she looked around the buildings. While the citizens remain indoors, they light up their homes with candles. The streets were empty and drenched. Not even a dog could be seen. Although the power is out, there's still light from the illuminated glows of kerosene lanterns everywhere. Since she has nothing else to do to impress anyone, she decides to perform a dance, a testament to a new fondness for the pouring rain, although an angry sky continues to hail down above her. She even lets herself be washed with the rain. She begins spinning, twirling, lifting her leg up high, while parading herself around the pavement, while some cars drive past her. She lifted her leg up high, holding it up practically to her head, turning her legs into a perfect straight vertical line. With a thunderous boom, she rushes to a lamppost and wraps her legs around the pole in midair, doing a couple revolutions before leaning up against the pole, her body now upside down and arms extend outward. She pulls herself up, righting herself before climbing to the top. With an inhuman leap, she leaps onto a red pillar box and lands with a clang with only her hands. She stood on her hands, her body upside down again, her long legs up in the air. Clearly, she has never been this gay about the rain before. If anyone ever had the nerve of heading out in the rain, either wearing a coat or no, then they would hear the cat princess cry out in near ecstasy.
Oh, what stranger things I have felt! How I love the floodgates in the firmament come down onto me, while the black sky briefly turns to white and continues to be irate. How I feel the coolness of the water fall down on my breast, while calmness brings in immediately. Oh, come now, you hyperactive firmament. Have the floodgates cleanse me like never before. I can think of nothing else but the rain. Oh, how the rain touched my skin like glass. How it bathed my body with gentle coolness. How it seeps into my clothing and down to my lower extremities, into my nerves and muscles, all with a calming relaxation. Come, misunderstood firmament, continue to give me gentle coolness. Continue to cleanse me, to touch my entire body as I carelessly dance and paying no attention to the world around me, even though I still bear the thoughts of such great wonders that I have ever witnessed before. Oh, firmament! There is no difference between right and wrong. It relies on dreams for those who are too shy to seek them. Tonight, nothing really matters, even when I'm dancing in the rain.
She then saw a small crystal ball rolling in the sidewalk towards her. She got off the pillow box and picked up the crystal, looking at it intently. But the ball slipped out of her hand and rolls away. She ran across the street after it. Eventually, she found herself in a forest outside the city limits before the crystal ball stops and glows so she can find it. However, she stopped when she found a pink kimono hanging on a branch, along with a small whisper saying, "Put it on, put it on." But would she? Looking closer, the kimono was decorated with patterns of cherry blossoms. It does look beautiful, but would she wear it? She froze when the whisper became louder to her ear. "Put it on. Put it on, kitty." Finally, she musters up and takes the kimono off the branch before wearing it over her leotard and her skirt. She was surprised when her body can feel the smoothness of it. Felt like she was draped in velvet. She can see the crystal ball glow brighter as she walked towards it. However, that's when she was actually staring at a 40-foot, silver-furred, great wolf of the forest, out of her sleep once again, the rain drenching her coat. Her black eyes with pink scleras look down. Her ginormous body towers over the princess, but the princess shows no fear.
"Who are you?"
Princess Kitty said. "I am the great wolf of the forest," the creature said, her voice rumbling, her mouth barely moving. "As I would say to all my followers, while wearing either a pink kimono or blue yukata, I ask you to kneel, for I am a supernatural being from folklore. A goddess." Princess Kitty immediately kneeled to her and said,
"I haven't met some creature like you before, but I've heard of you in a book at the library."
"I appreciate the honesty you have shown to me," the great wolf of the forest said. "What shall I call you?"
"You may refer to me as Highness,"
Princess Kitty said.
"I'm the noble-born princess of KAWAII Wonderland, the daughter of the king and queen. May they continue to reign in the reaches of the universe."
"So," the great wolf of the forest said, "it seemed that I have heard that name before. I really have been expecting you."
"Why? What purpose do you have as to why you were expecting me to arrive here?"
"I've been awoken by your father, the king of your kingdom. He wants me to tell you that he'll be coming at sunrise to congratulate you for ever trying so hard on your expedition before the crystal leads you to me."
"Of course. That means I'll be reunited with the Pratchett's once again."
"It takes time for the people in their city to request your presence again, especially those who do not believe. It takes time for you to be known throughout the city."
"And if most don't want to believe?"
The great wolf of the forest growled, baring her huge fangs. "As far as they are concerned, I'm sure that the decision to not believe in anything is far worse than any misfortune they might receive in the near future. Now, would they ever feel terrible in not believing? Would you let any misfortune fall on them as a direct result for their ignorance? There are worse things than not believing."
"It's for their own good,"
Princess Kitty said.
"but I don't think that's ever going to happen as long as I'm always wanted. I can even wait forever. I would even give my love for them."
"Is that what you're afraid of? Being forgotten by the city you wanted to call home?" The great wolf of the forest waited, with an odd intensity. That made Princess Kitty feel saddened, for the goddess before her is wise.
"I did read about you at the library, as well as other creatures,"
Princess Kitty said.
"You are a guardian to nature itself. How wise you are of knowing what I'm afraid of, even while modern man leaves his influence on this world."
The great wolf of the forest slowly lurched. "That I find it hard to believe. If what you say is sincere, and that is all there is, You must know my name as well.
I have, on pain of torture,
Princess Kitty said. Depends if you do. Delaying is as unsafe as the wrong answer. In front of the wolf, Princess Kitty said slowly and carefully,
Mori no Okami.
At the sound of that name, the huge wolf raised her head and lets out a long, loud howl, which can be heard for several miles, loud enough to cut through the sound of the pouring rain and the booming of thunder, enough to shake some leaves off of branches. Then her body slumps in front of the princess.
That does tell you that I'm telling you the truth. Is that right?
Princess Kitty said.
And that's all there is.
Highness, the great wolf of the forest said. The moment of knowing this kind of knowledge is a shock.
Are you saying that I might be connected to them?
You are different from the rest of the unknown. Aside from creatures like us, I want you to know that humans aren't the only worthy forms of life. You are more than just noble-born to us, Highness. You are the one.
The one? How am I the one?
Your time will come, Princess, when questions like these will be answered as it is written. You first encounter Arashi no Sakana out at sea. Now you encounter me in the forest. It won't be long before. Then the wolf's body becomes fatigued.
What's happening to you?
Princess Kitty asked.
Are you dying?
Do not be foolish and stupid, Highness, the great wolf of the forest said. I rest, but I will not die. Like all deities, I will not be sick, and I will not die. Deities will live until the last star is gone, when the entire universe is shrouded in darkness forever. We exist before when the world began, and we shall exist long after humanity departed.
I understand. What do you want me to do now?
Now, I would like you to go back to Moimo Harbor.
Where in Morimo? Why would I go there?
The great wolf of the forest slowly closed her eyes. Highness, you have no idea what's ahead, she said, her voice becoming a whisper. It hides. So look clearly. Then her huge body becomes relaxed and lay still. Nodding, Princess Kitty whispered, I will check it out. Then she makes her way out of the forest. Upon arriving at Morimo Harbor, she could hardly see the sea beyond, cloaked in low fog. The power outage did not help.
Which way?
She asked herself.
Which way?
Soon enough, the only light she could see was from an old lighthouse, the beam revolving around it. She can't help but ask herself,
Is that where I'm supposed to go?
However, she might as well. That might be the right place. The lighthouse wasn't as old as the city's clock tower in Market Square. It housed two keepers, Kishiro Yoshioka from Kaushi City, and Milo Clark, a local from Morimo Harbor. In the event of a power outage, it was the only structure that isn't part of the electrical grid, because the illumination relies on an argon lamp that's fueled with whale oil at the top of the tower, assisting in safe entries of the harbor during a storm. However, in the event of a serious storm, the Coast Guard Kodono Station, with emergency generators, radio other ships to postpone any arrivals at the harbor unless given permission when one arrives. For ships without communications, one has to signal them with a Morse lamp. Donned in their yellow raincoats, they stood at the top of the lighthouse, joined by former Captain Fred Groden and Navigator Lawrence Barnes, two of the Maybell crew. Larry had to admit that the lighthouse has some better work for him, rather than the trawlers on the docks, when he's hired Navigator. Fred wasn't any different. In fact, he hasn't been the same since his return to the mainland. With his ship decommissioned by the CGKS, his fishing business has been put on hiatus for the next few months. Of course, he was determined to keep his business from Mayor Donovan's hands, but that results in him at his wit's end, after what happened to him and the 18 members of his crew. The food the keepers gave them was good, mainly consists of a meat-filled pie seasoned with garlic. But this night has something for them to work with. "It's a terrible night to be out," Kishiro said. "Aye, mate," Milo agreed. "By the looks of it, there's a storm about. You'll feel it in your bones before you know it. Of course, I wouldn't tell the locals that. They would think you're stupid. But you know what I say? We're doing the city a favor in case disaster looms." "Well, don't expect no respect," Larry said. "The blazes I don't," Milo said. "I'm through with the lighthouse. In the morning, I'm going back to the village and make an honest woman of Amanda, when I get enough sleep, that is. Say, you don't want some hot chocolate to warm you up? I can make some." "That'll be a shame for me, sir," Fred said. "No, thank you," Larry said. "I couldn't eat anything more, especially that pie." "Then you must have room for ice cream," Milo said. "I'll make the most wonderful maple ice cream." "Oh, yes," Fred said. "I would like some if there's enough." "There'll be enough for all of us," Kishiro said. Then they hear a voice from below. "Hello?" Kishiro looked at Milo. "Hey, you hear something?" Milo looks down. A barrel-chested, bearded man of 40. "I don't see anything." Then the voice is heard again. "Hello?" There. Fred froze as he recognized that voice. "I have to go down there. I'll be right back." "Who's down there?" Milo asked. "A friend of mine from the Maybell." He quickly heads down and saw Princess Kitty outside the base. "It's you!" he exclaimed. "What are you doing here?" "I've been told to come here," she said. "However, I never expected to see you again." Tears appeared in his eyes. "But I do, Kitty. I want to meet you again for days, but in times like these, I never knew that you were so hard to find." He can hear Milo and Kishiro from above. "Hey! Who's down there?" Fred calls out. "Come down here! Just a friend of mine! I told you!" Soon enough, Larry, Milo, and Kishiro arrive outside the base of the tower. Milo's jaw dropped at the sight of her. It seemed that Fred has told them about the expedition. "So this is Princess Kitty," Milo said. "The one and only," Fred said. "This is the cat girl who joined our Maybell expedition a few weeks ago. She's the one who—" "I never knew people like you existed," Kishiro said. "Are you really from another world?" She nodded. "I'm from a magical kingdom, way out in the reaches of the universe. I came here all this way to make myself feel right at home." "Surely you'll let her stay for tonight," Fred said. "I'm certain she has nowhere else to go." "I think I'll make an exception just for tonight," Milo said. "The storm's already getting worse, especially when the power goes out all over the city." "Yeah, I know," Larry nodded. "All but the lighthouse, the street lamps, and the CGKS. "I'm well aware of that, Larry," she said. "Surely, it's the city's problem, and not mine. What is your name?" Milo said. "My name is Milo Clark. My partner's name is Kishiro Yoshioka." "We have a cabin beside the tower, Kitty," Larry said. "Fred and I will be here all night until sunrise and when the storm clears. although I have to sacrifice my sleep in doing so. By the way, Milo said, aren't you scared when the power goes out? She simply said,
Why should I be scared?
Milo, Kishiro, and Larry take her to the house, with Fred following her. To Princess Kitty, this is the strangest house she had ever been to. It was a bedroom, kitchen, and a bathroom all in one, while Milo is making dinner on the top of a wood-burning furnace. Kishiro sheds his raincoat and heads to bed. He said, I don't care if I've been wearing a raincoat. I'm soaked through down to the bone. If you're sick, I'll make you some chicken soup, Milo said. He opens the icebox and pulls out a container of maple ice cream. Make sure you give some to Kitty, Larry said. Milo gave her a bowl of ice cream. Go ahead and try it, Kitty, Larry said. It's made with fresh maple syrup, eggs, and cream. It's very simple maple ice cream, but still. She dipped a spoon inside the bowl.
If you want, maybe I can help around the lighthouse.
Certainly, Milo said, and brings out a Morse lamp on a tripod. Sure you know how to use this, Fred said, annoyed. I'm certain she hasn't even heard of a Morse lamp before.
What is a Morse lamp?
She asked, tasting the ice cream. Fred explained to her. It's a visual signaling device for optical communication, typically using Morse code. Morse code is a method used in telecommunication to encode text characters as standardized sequences of two different signal durations, called either dots and dashes, or dits and das. This method was invented 100 years ago, and was still useful to this day. For ships without communications, we signal them with this, Milo said.
How does it work?
She asked. You aim the light at a recipient ship and turn a lever, opening and closing the shutter over the lamp, to emit flashes of light to spell out text messages in Morse code. To demonstrate, he opened and closed the shutter over a lamp. Light emits through the open shutter. You'll find the chart of Morse code letters and numerals in the tower, he said, placing the pan on the top of the furnace. After you finish your ice cream, make sure you wear a raincoat before we go out. We wouldn't want you to get sick. Take Kishiro's.
I'm pretty sure I won't need it,
she said. High atop the lighthouse, with the beam dimming, Princess Kitty positioned the Morse lamp. Peering out, she saw a blinking light on the horizon. Once Milo joined her with binoculars, she asked,
What's out there?
He looks out with his binoculars, saying, That's the Cagliostro. She's signaling us. She's requesting permission to dock at the harbor.
What should I tell them?
Tell her to stand by. Wait for tugboats. I'll go get to the station.
How long will we be back?
I'll be back. I'll leave you with your friends to accompany you. Go ahead. Signal Cagliostro. Call sign is KMHA. You'll find the full list of call signs inside. He heads back inside, and she uses the Morse lamp, signaling. Looking down, she can see Milo heading out and into his brown truck before speeding off. Sure enough, Fred and Larry arrived at the top.
I've signaled them, Larry, she said. What are they saying?
You use your call sign KMHA? Larry asked.
I did.
Fred looks out with his binoculars and said, She received your message. Well done. Take this. He gives her the binoculars. If there's anything you need help with, let me know, he said.
I'd like to see the list of call signs,
she said. Very well. Inside, he and Larry show her the full list of call signs, according to the CGKS.
So many ships,
she said, impressed. I'm glad you were impressed, Fred said. Moimo Harbor's been here since 1787, during Samuel Moimo's term as mayor. Most ships over the years are out of commission by the end of the 19th century. The most famous that was lost was the Spirit of Freedom. It really is absurd seeing that schooner up in the air last Tuesday. She nodded, understanding. Then she noticed the 7th row on the list, crossed out in red.
What happened to your ship? The Maybelle?
She asked. With that, his face went even grayer. The CGKS took her from me upon arriving at Moimo, he said. Decommissioned. She'll never be repaired. She'll be scrapped within a year. If only I had found you sooner. More importantly, you shouldn't have left us without saying goodbye.
Why not? She asked. Why is it important that I should stay? People don't believe in anything nowadays, especially a girl with pink hair.
Stricken, tears filled his eyes, but his voice remained low when he spoke. You shouldn't have left me and my crew alone when the people in the press swarmed the harbor and onto my ship, Kitty. How could you abandon us like this? You were the only evidence we've had on our expedition. But the moment you were gone, no one would believe us. No one even saw that giant swan at the front of the bow. But she remained firm.
What does that tell you, Fred? Why should they believe in anything you're about to say that isn't real?
Larry stated, Kitty, less than 17 of those men who were lost were husbands or relatives. Not all reunions end happily, Kitty, Fred said. I've seen the moroseness of those men, women, and children on board. I've even heard their sobs and wails, especially from the children, which is too much for me. At 11, friends and relatives went on board the Atropos, where the 17 bodies were stored in pine caskets with holes on the side and the floor covered with lead plates. A number was burned on the side with branding irons. Upon reaching the North Sea, a funeral service is held that lasted an hour before the bodies were committed to the deep, while the cleanup crew and lifeboats salvaged the debris from the water. Using a ramp slick with tallow, I saw the sailors slide the caskets off the ship and into the sea, one by one. As the caskets fell in the water and sank, I could have sworn I saw swarms of stormfish swimming underneath us. I never told anyone about those fish, because no one would believe me.
Perhaps it was best that people should call this confrontation with the stormfish as an unexpected storm that takes half of your men and leaving the ship in ruin without contact from the city,
she said.
No one will ever know what really happened. A girl with pink hair, Kitty Felinis, decides to leave the ship the moment it reaches the dock. You live, but the hardships of what should have been a fine expedition will stay with you, even after you've endured enough hardships, even after you've learned your lesson. So why worry about what really happened to you, your men, and your ship?
Larry laughed sorrowfully. So why worry about what really happened to me? Oh, that's perfect. I should add that in a letter to the CGKS. Right now, you sound just like that woman we've met, Kitty, Fred sneered. Miss Lenoir.
Miss who?
She asked. Miss Charlotte Simone Lenoir, Kitty, Larry said. We've met her before the press and the loved ones come aboard. We told her what happened to us. We even mentioned you to her after you left us. But when we mentioned about the people not seeing that giant swan, she said, what is everyone going to hear? We never knew how right she really was. Reporters think we made it all up. A figment of our imagination. Kitty, I don't know whether to continue living like this or to kill myself, Fred said. Truth be told, I should have been dead in the water just like the rest of them.
Right now, given from your behavior, that was the most disrespectful thing you would ever say to me,
she sneered. Larry said, He's different from the rest of us. Those who are still around, we wouldn't mind giving him the help he needs until he gets his life squared away. Florence has refused him to see Bugsy. She even wished that he was the one who was catatonic and not her husband, because no one would care about him. Not even every single sailor in Morimo since that incident. Even Otis's family wished it was him instead of Otis, because they were looking forward to see him again. You understand that? What shall I do now, Kitty? Fred demanded at the end of his tether. Can't you see that I've been punished enough? My fishing business that I've been determined to keep from the mayor's hands. It's all I've got to earn a living in this city.
Then it's the one thing you shall let go,
she said.
You will find better luck somewhere else. Somewhere where you can make a living of yourself and start with a clean slate and put what happened in the past behind you. Which means you might as well give up that smelly boathouse at the mouth of the bay.
Before Fred can say anything, Larry cuts in. I'll make sure he starts over. He has me, as well as some of the crew from the Maybell. The boathouse was in strict violation of the city's building code anyway. Now, if you see anything out there, let us know. We're taking shelter inside. Don't be giving Fred such a hard time again, Kitty, because he had suffered enough. She nodded and heads out into the open, but not before she can hear Fred say softly, You shouldn't have left us alone when we docked, Kitty. Looking out with the binoculars, she now wasn't paying attention to the Cagliostro. She was paying attention to the clouds ahead. There, she saw something that no one had ever seen before. Once, when lightning flashes, she can see a faint shape. Suspicious, she matches the binoculars to her eyes, trying to get a better look. Through them, the shape in the clouds looks somehow like an enormous bird, flapping its wings 20 miles, 15 miles away. Then she remembered what the great wolf said. It hides. So look clearly.
If you come here sooner, you would have frightened me,
she calls out in a whisper.
You keep away, and don't let me catch you making trouble.
But looking ahead, that's not all she sees. Above the sea, she saw an enormous hot air balloon with blue and white stripes. She calls out to Larry.
There's something ahead!
He immediately came out. What, Kitty? She gives him the binoculars and points ahead.
There! Do you see it?
Yeah, he said. A balloon less than a mile and a half away. I think it wants to land near the lighthouse.
Shall I signal it?
Well, it has no Morse lamp. But here's what you're going to do. You let it land near the lighthouse. If it gets there, when Mile comes back, he'll look into it. I think balloons shall take refuge during the storm. I think you can come downstairs now. Bring the lamp with you. But remembering the huge figure that was shrouded in the clouds, she shook her head.
I want to stay here.
All right, suit yourself, he said. You take care. Then he heads back inside, carefully taking the Morse lamp with him. Inside the hot air balloon, two Irish balloonists, Patrick Paddy Byrne and William Bill Dodd, can see the lighthouse from here. They were in the midst of a balloon race as a summer tradition from London to Hong Kong and back. As their first stop, they tried reaching Corico, but the storm is too much for them, even while they don their raincoats. Looks like there's hope, Paddy called to Bill. There's a city nearby. But look, Bill said. The whole city's dark. A lot of haze here. 'Tis because of the storm. But that's not a problem. They'll have power in the morning. When the storm clears at sunrise, we continue on. What about Corico? We'll take an alternative route, probably to Leningrad. Until then, we take refuge. We're nearly at the shore. We'll set anchor on land. Ready the anchor. There was a faint screech that got their attention. Faith and Bagata, Bill said. What's that noise? 'Tis the thunder, Paddy said. I don't think so. It sounded like a hawk. Impossible. Hawks don't fly in storms. Secondly, it sounds bigger. They turned back and saw a silhouette of something dark looming towards them. The color drained out of their faces. It was a giant bird with black feathers, with light blue ends on her wings, a light blue beak, and matching eyes. It was 84 meters long from beak to tail, with a wingspan of 90 meters, bigger than any other bird on this planet. The balloonist screamed like mad as the bird lets out an ear-piercing screech.
"'Tis coming right for us!"
Bill cried.
"What do we do?" "We're drifting near the shore,"
Patty shouted.
"We drop the anchor now."
Together with both arms, they dropped the anchor. When it hits the water and snagged onto a reef, the balloon lurches, trying to drift away. The balloonists are jolted across the basket, but they remain inside. Seeing the enormous bird approaching, and the shore 200 feet ahead, Patty said,
"We have to dive into the water and swim for the shore." "What if we drown?"
Bill cried.
"Or catch pneumonia?"
"That's a risk we're willing to take. We're better off drowning than to get killed by a bird that enormous. You go first, Bill. Slide down the anchor rope and jump in. I'll follow you." Bill grabbed the anchor rope and goes over the basket before slowly coming down. Outside the base and fuming, Princess Kitty calls out to Fred. Immediately, he burst through the door and ran towards her. "Kitty, what is it?" he demanded. "What's wrong?" She passes the binoculars to him and points at where the balloon is.
There!
He peers through and saw a man climbing down the rope, but he also saw the bird that was flying towards it. "My God!" he exclaimed, and calls out to Larry. "Come over here, quick!" Larry approached him right away. "What is it?" Fred gave him the binoculars and pointed towards the giant bird that's terrorizing the balloon. "Over there!" "What is that, Larry?" "I don't think there are birds this huge before." Looking through the binoculars, Larry said, "I have no idea. Is it some kind of dragon or an extinct pterodactyl? Maybe it's a new species of bird. Given by the size of it, as well as the wingspan, it could be considered the largest bird ever flew on record."
It's an arashi bird!
She cried.
"A what?"
Arashi birds were responsible for creating dangerous storms like this. They shoot lightning bolts from their eyes and create winds with their wings and cause power outages. But that's not all. Working together, they make tornadoes and hurricanes when they fly around together in circles. I should have known this bird is responsible for knocking out the power to your city. I haven't felt a scenario like that since.
"Would they kill a human being?" Fred asked.
When you're out into the open,
She said.
the best way to survive is to stay indoors where it's safe.
Milo's truck came to a stop next to her, Fred, and Larry. Milo recently went to the station and had tugboats lead the Cagliostro to the harbor. "What happened?" he asked, exiting the vehicle.
"There's a giant bird terrorizing, Milo,"
Larry explained.
"and it's heading towards those balloonists."
Those who are out in the open and saw an arashi bird without knowing a thing or two about it shall be slain mercilessly by one.
Princess Kitty snarled.
In order to stay alive, you must know that, Milo. Terror by terror by terror.
When Milo saw the balloon and the giant arashi bird through the binoculars, he said, "Then we gotta help them out on the rope. When they're safe, we'll have to do something about—"
No,
she said.
no. You do not understand these things. None of you had. These birds see you outside in the open, and you die. So I must confront it alone. You take refuge. You'll remain safe. Hurry!
"Be careful, Kitty!" Fred cried, as he, Milo, and Larry headed into the small house before she ran towards the balloon. Bill continues the tedious way down when the terrible arashi bird screeches and begins to shoot lightning out of her eyes. It almost hit him, but that made him lost his grip in one hand.
"Hang on!"
Patty said.
"I'm coming down!"
He grabbed onto the rope and climbs over the basket, but the arashi bird shoots lightning at it. It grazed the side of the basket, making him lose his grip on the rope and leaves him with one hand gripping onto it.
"Patty!"
Bill screamed.
"Don't worry about me!"
Patty shouted.
"Keep going down, Bill! I won't leave you up there! We'll go down together!"
However, there's no time to argue.
"Just go, Bill!"
Patty screamed. The Arashi bird screeches and flap her powerful wings, trying to blow him away. Patty screamed as he is overwhelmed. Princess Kitty tread on the surface of the sea with ease and shouts obscenities at the bird, her scepter waving up in the air.
Murderer of murderers! She screamed. Tyrant of tyrants! Forces of forces! Terror of terrors! Now is not the time to take one's life away!
The effect was immediate. The Arashi bird glared at Princess Kitty on the surface of the water and screeched, knowing that she's been insulted, and flapped her wings again, making Patty's grip loosen. Before he knew it, he slips and falls off the basket. Princess Kitty leaps up and grabs Patty by the waist, her other hand grabbing the rope. But that makes Bill lose his grip and falls into the water. Luckily, it was a 10-foot drop.
Easy, she said. I got you.
Where did you come from?
He asked. Bill rose up from the surface and kicks his way toward shore.
Grab onto the rope and slide down,
she told Patty.
Don't look up and don't let go.
He slides down the rope, and she confronts the Arashi bird again.
Just because you look frightening, that doesn't mean you can scare me, for I'm not afraid,
she boasted. Her scepter shoots a beam at one of the bird's wings. The monster bird screamed and flapped in pain.
Just because you can shoot lightning from your eyes and has talons, that doesn't mean you can kill an unprotected opponent, for you are not welcome to kill,
Princess Kitty boasted. Her scepter shoots a beam at one of the bird's legs. The monster bird screamed and flapped again. Her fury is building to a tremendous intensity.
Just because your size is intimidating, you have no power over me! You are not welcome!
Princess Kitty screamed as her scepter shoots a beam at the bird's head. It was a direct hit, and the Arashi bird flailed and screeching in a furious pain before she turns around and flew out of sight in defeat. Patty lets go of the rope and dropped 10 feet into the water. Kicking his legs, he swims to shore. Once he makes it, Princess Kitty landed behind him, asking,
Are you all right?
Of course I am,
he said.
Where's my partner?
She takes him inside the cabin, where she found Bill with a bowl of soup that was heated by the top of the furnace. Their wet clothes were stripped, and their nakedness covered in blankets. We saw the whole thing through a window, Fred said. That was a very bold thing to do, Kitty, just like the stormfish. But did you kill it? Can it be killed?
No,
she said.
I just made it angry.
Made it angry? He screamed. If that bloated pigeon comes back.
It won't come back. Perhaps you're not familiar with Arashi birds. Once an Arashi bird is infuriated to its peak or is intimidated, it moves away to vent its frustration on someplace else.
Someplace else? Keishiro asked.
Once an angry sky has had enough, it migrates someplace else,
she said.
Everyone knows that.
How did you know this? Milo asked.
A book I've read at the library,
she said. Like the stormfish? Larry asked. She nodded. I've been to libraries many times, he said. I don't think such a book does exist.
Exactly,
she said, her eyes narrowing.
Though there's no such book, such creatures do exist, making you question the natural order of things. After what happened tonight, all of Kodono should know that precision and order is never going to last after 200 years. All you had to do, the only thing, is to keep your eyes open.
She turns to Fred.
For now, I may have told you that no one shall believe you, but eventually, even people will be forced to see these kinds of things. They'll have to believe in anything you say to them.
You think so? Fred asked. Even that so-called expert Miss Sanwa?
Who is Miss Sanwa?
If you want to know who she is, then you shouldn't have left us alone when we have docked. I do keep my eyes open, Larry said. I have to hold some fears about this world. I want you to know that I'm a reasonable man who knows the world and everything that inhabits it. A very reasonable one.
And what does that mean to you?
She said. Kitty, if you're really from some other world, surely you are willing to understand the natural order things which we abide by. Our world, as everyone knew, was 4.5 billion years old. In that context, human civilization is just a blink of an eye. First came bacteria, followed by the first multicellular animals, then the first complex creatures in either the sea or on the land. Eventually, there came great sweeping ages of animals, amphibians, dinosaurs, reptiles, birds, mammals, each lasting millions upon millions of years. Great dynasties of animals came and went, oceans rising and falling, entire continents moving. The first human civilization, with the discovery of fire, the rising and falling of the 7 wonders, the great empires that lasted 1,000, 2,000 years. It took us thousands of years to build cities. Over time, we improve. It took 1,000 years for us to spread religions in all the corners of the earth. There was Christianity, and Judaism, and Buddhism. We have both the Bible, the Torah, and the Quran. Those things are what we truly believe in, Kitty. In the thinking of a typical human being, 100 years is a long time. 100 years ago, we didn't have cars and airplanes and electricity and vaccines. It was a whole different world. I hardly believe in mythology and folklore. I hardly believe there is such a place as El Dorado, or Quivira, or Atlantis. I hardly believe in superstitions that has rarely occurred to good people. As far as I know, the 2 things where supernatural creatures exist is either on paper or in the human imagination. When we die, taking with us to the grave is the imagination. But the creatures written on paper will survive. But it is unlikely to believe such things. Let's make it clear. Year by year, decade by decade, century by century, it is unlikely to believe such stranger things. In the city that we live in, Kitty, there are only thoughts of precision and order. They still abide by those ideals for the past 200 years. She nodded.
Try as the people may, Larry. Nothing will ever stop them from becoming corporeal to the public. Humanity will be forced to coexist.
Look there!
Bill points out the window.
The rain stopped.
But the power's still out, Milo said. At sunrise, the city will get the electricity restored, and then things will go back to the way they were.
Except stranger things are going to continue,
she said.
We'll have to make the best of it, I'm afraid.
I guess that means we do live in a world of mystery, Kishido points out.
If you do live in a world of mystery, Yoshioka-san, you'll be willing to learn to find who you are, I'm glad to say,
she said.
We wouldn't be able to thank you enough for saving us,
Bill said to Princess Kitty.
So what are your names?
She asked. Patrick Byrne, he introduced. Call me Patty.
And I'm William Dodd,
Bill said.
We're from Dublin, but we've started our race in London.
And where are you going from, London?
She asked.
We're supposed to reach Cordono, but we're forced to stay here. We're on a race to Hong Kong and back.
What is this race?
First we stop at Koriko, then we head to 4 Russian cities, Leningrad, Jaboksary, Kurgan, and Brno. Afterwards, we stop at Maroon, then we go to Wuhai and Wuhan, before reaching our destination in Hong Kong. Then we go back the way we came.
That's right, Patty said. At sunrise, we must be going, continue with our race, but it's getting late.
Our balloon is still up in the air,
Bill said.
With it tied to the anchor, it ain't going nowhere.
You just leave it to me,
she said.
Milo and Yoshioka-san will take you to your beds.
Heading out to the wet grass and into the sea, she drags the balloon to shore, hanging onto the anchor. Once she's on solid ground, she pulls the balloon in. Patty and Bill are dumbstruck to see this.
Surprised?
She asked.
You have to be. For the first time I came here, I had no idea how good it felt to do the great things I have done to the city. Be sure to tell the other balloonists that when you get to Hong Kong. In that way, they have no idea why human beings are not the only worthy form of life in the universe.
A flood of dawn came pouring in around her. The breeze was warm and balmy. Clouds began to disappear, and with them, the terrible Arashi bird. Princess Kitty remained standing near the lighthouse until she watches the balloon rise and float away. Later on, she was sitting on the rocks of Morimo Harbor, listening to the peaceful lapping of the surf at the shore. Staring out, she can hear the calmness of the waves sing out to her in reverence. Then she saw her father on the surface of the water. She rose up to her feet and kneels. I have been summoned today to congratulate you for your effort, especially helping those balloonists last night, the king said. I was hoping you make many friends because I was expecting.
You have no idea, she said. You couldn't have imagined
how good it felt to do great things to the people in the city. Is that it? She looked back at the city before her and frowned.
But it wasn't enough.
How is it not enough? The king asked. There are 300,000 people in the city, and we know that you managed to make several. Several? Out of 300,000. How is it not enough? What are you implying?
These grown-ups must have been more difficult to be friends than I thought.
If that is the case, if it does upset you, you will try harder today. As it is, it will happen. I doubt that for your good reputation, your help will be called for endlessly, even for those tasks that human beings can't solve themselves. Will you do that for me at least?
I will do anything to make them believe in me,
she vowed, but her face expressed in sadness.
Kodono shall continue to welcome me, no matter what.
Now you're getting somewhere, the king said. You make it stick. The deadline is near. You have 2 more days before your expedition comes to an end. Always try harder. She reaches towards her father's image, but he fades, leaving her alone, and she lowers her arms with a disconcerted look. She looks around in confusion, not sure what to do, but she must try harder. But where would she go from here?